All right, guys, we're going to take a little journey into how to become a backpack hunter with my new friend, Josh Kirchner. There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Western Huntsman Podcast. This is Jim Huntsman, your host, and I'm coming at you from the Broken Tine studio right here in snowy Clark Fork, Idaho. And this week, I thought that it would be kind of fun to get somebody on to talk, get off the subject. We've had a lot of tough conversations lately where we're talking about, the future of hunting and what hunters are doing to kind of put that into jeopardy, and what anti-hunters are doing, and this bear hunting ban in Washington, helping our friends in Washington, things in that nature. So it's been a little bit tense around here. So I figured it would be fun to get somebody on to talk about backcountry hunting, who is an author who just wrote a book called Becoming a Backpack Hunter: A Beginner's Guide to Hunting the Backcountry. And my goal was to have this book read before we got him on the show. We've had this episode scheduled for a few weeks here, but unfortunately I just barely got it. So we're going to have the author himself here explain the book and talk all things backcountry hunting, and I'm really looking forward to it. Josh, I appreciate you coming on. By the way, his name is Josh Kirchner, and Josh, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure to come talk about hunting.
I am super jealous of your Arizona weather right now. So
you and a lot of other people.
I have, I spend hours on this tractor I've got, going up and down the driveway trying to get the ice off it so we can just leave our property. It's ridiculous. And then where are you at in Arizona, by the way?
I'm in central Arizona, so right around Phoenix.
Right around Phoenix?
Yep.
I've got a lot of friends down there, and in fact, I was supposed to come down and do a coos deer hunt this last season, but it got postponed till next year because my property wasn't ready for me to leave it just yet. So,
oh man,
yeah. So I want to kind of kick this off before we get to the book. Give us kind of a synopsis of where you're from and how you grew up, man.
Yeah, so I live in Arizona right now. I've been here since I'm goodness gracious. I think I'm 36 now, Jim.
Oh man, you're getting long in the tooth, brother.
Yeah, okay. I'm still a young buck, I think, But
oh yeah,
had a dad, have a dad that brought me up in hunting and fishing from a young age, and I was kind of the oddball out in school. Back when I was a kid, hunting and fishing wasn't really cool. If that makes sense to people out there.
Makes total sense. Was that in Arizona or? Yeah,
so it was in Arizona, but also I lived in New York for the first 8 years of my life.
Oh wow, that's a big difference.
Yeah. A lot of contrast between the two. So yeah, I grew up over there. First 8 years, did a lot of fishing in the ocean over there with my dad. And then when we, the whole time we were living there, my dad had this gun box that he made there at home, and inside of it was a lot of hunting magazines, like Western hunting magazines.
Uh-huh.
And I would get into that stuff, and it was just like diving into a completely different world than I knew. I had never seen a mountain before when I was that age. And so when my mom and dad told me we were moving to Arizona, my mom had family out here. I was just like so excited to go to go dive
see
in
the
and
mountains and
yeah, and it was we landed on the plane, and that's the first thing I saw was like mountains, and I couldn't believe it. It was absolutely unreal to me. And I did my first deer hunt with my dad when I was like 9 years old when we got here, and first time I slept out in a tent, and it just kind of changed my whole life pretty much, and I just kind of been obsessed about it ever since.
So when you were in New York, what were you like in New York City or upstate or?
We lived in Queens.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Because I'm curious about like the dynamic of that. You were interested in hunting and stuff. Like, what was the among the other students at school or something? Did they think you were crazy wanting to go hunting or?
Oh, I was the only guy, like for sure. Like no, I didn't have any friends that even really went fishing.
Huh.
I was, and honestly, man, the same, that kind of continued once I moved out to Arizona. There was a few kids here and there, cause you are out West now, right? You're kind of,
Yeah.
opening yourself up a little bit more to that type of life. But like, I was still like one of the only kids out there. Like I remember I did not a book report. I did a report on largemouth bass when I was like 10. And like that was, so that was my childhood. You know what I mean? That's what I was into. And I did meet one guy that was into that stuff as well. And to this day, he's still my like very best friend. And we're, like I said, we're in our 30s now. So
Wow. Well, that's awesome, man. So I love that kind of stuff and that kind of story because it speaks to, we talk about that kind of stuff a lot on this show where it's like, what developed this passion for hunting and how did you become so into it? Because I was the same way in school. Now, I grew up in Utah where it was a lot more prominent to go hunting. Like they shut our schools down when deer season opened.
Oh man.
And it was a big deal. But as I got into high school and stuff, I found myself more and more like a minority, and I actually stopped playing football after my sophomore year because it cut into my hunting time, big time. And like I remember my coach was pissed and wouldn't talk to me and he just didn't understand,
Yep.
So it's just that's how it was. But when as you're going through like high school and well, give us an idea growing up in Arizona on the Arizona side, for a lot of us that have never hunted Arizona, I know you guys obviously you have the Coues deer, you have the muleys, there's some really good elk hunting down there. I want to say, no, that wild boar I shot was in Nevada, not Arizona, but it was right on the Arizona border. So anyway, what would you hunt?
For me when I was a kid, so here's kind of where things are different. When I was a kid, it was always deer hunting for us. That was it was, you had your annual deer camp pretty much with me and my dad, and early on my mom would come and stuff, and then we had they had my little brother and he started coming along. So every October, late October, that's what we would do. Is we'd go Coues deer hunting. But then once I got into my mid-20s, I'd say, I was like, you know what, man, I really want to like learn more about all this. I want to hunt different things, bears and just other species and branch out from the only thing I ever knew was deer.
Yeah. That's how I was too.
And that's what I did. The first animal that I went and hunted on my own, like away from dad, was a bear. And that just not anybody that knows me now knows that there's a few things in life that make me really happy, and black bear hunting is one of them.
Oh man.
So,
like a spring bear hunt kind of thing?
oh, all of it, buddy.
All of it?
Spring, fall. I cut my teeth fall bear hunting. And then yeah.
Are you bear hunting in Arizona there?
Oh yeah.
And is in Arizona, is it like spot and stock? Can you bait? Can you use hounds? What kind of bear hunting is it?
It's so baiting is illegal. Is illegal. You're not allowed to bait. You can use hounds during the fall. You're not allowed to use hounds. I don't, but I know you're not allowed. We have one spring hunt that's a draw. I know you're not allowed to use hounds during that, and I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to use hounds during the over the counter spring hunt. But other than that, it's all spot and stalk, predator calling. Obviously, we sit the water here because water is precious here in the desert.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably I mean, we could talk about the difference between like a desert versus like a coniferous high mountain forest like we're in up here. But I think that you nailed it with the water thing. Everybody I know down there, they hunt water. Because it's crazy to us up here in North Idaho because water's just everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it makes that makes for an interesting backpack hunt because we oftentimes are hauling water in to areas so we can live back in the mountains because there's always water around, but it's always not in a convenient spot.
Yeah.
And a lot of the critters out here, man, they get their moisture from just the feed that they're eating. Like animals are not on like real dry years, they will be absolutely glued to water sources. But other than that, I mean, you don't need to be like right next to a spring or anything like that in order to get into good hunting. They are very adaptable and hardy critters. So
I want to back up for just a minute. Something you said there. What got you into like backcountry hunting?
That my own curiosity is what. The thing that really drove me to want to hunt further away from roads and stuff was I had a couple bad experiences when I was a kid, running into just with other hunters. Like one time, a story I tell often is my dad and I, we were out scouting day before opening day. You know what I mean? We find this little forky coos buck, and I was like, heck yeah, he's gonna be there. We're all psyched. It's gonna be my first deer. And we get in there early in the dark, and we get set up, and then we weren't far from a road. We hear a truck come down the way. It stops, and then we hear a gunshot, and it was like, gosh dang it, man. You know what I mean? Like, so and that guy killed
the
that
road hunter. Kind of
yeah.
thing.
Oh yeah.
I've had that happen. Exactly that scenario.
Yeah. So that, along with a slew of other similar things, happened quite a bit when I was younger. And I was like, you know what? I just got mad. And before I started backcountry hunting, I was like, I just started hiking for an hour in the dark.
Yeah.
Trying to get away from roads, and I found good hunting doing that. But then as I went through doing that, I'm like, you know what? This would be a lot more efficient if I actually just went back and slept back there, instead of making this big hike in the morning, big hike in the evening, big hike in the morning, big hike in the evening. You know what I mean? Like, you're being a lot more efficient with your energy. So I started looking into backpack hunting. And in all honesty, before I even went on my first backpack hunt and considered doing so, I told myself I would never backpack hunt because it sounded insane. Like, because you come from a guy like check it out. You go hunting with your dad or whatever, and it's like you load up the whole back of the truck, right, with everything that you need.
Oh yeah.
And then you think about going backpack hunting, and it's like, well, how the hell am I going to get all that stuff in the back of the truck in a backpack, right? But it was just,
Coleman coolers and lanterns.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it was just, I didn't know about it. It was my ignorance on the topic, And so once I started looking more into it, the little bit of information that was out there, I was like, oh wow, this, I think I might be able to do this. And how I posed it to my wife, was I was like, hey, why don't we get into backpacking? And then that was something, because I always tried to include her in things that I did and stuff like that. She's not a hunter, but I'm like, hey, this is something that we can both do. We can backpack, and then heck, can bring a set of binoculars along with me and kind of scout as I'm doing this stuff and get used to living, off the beaten path. And so that's what we did. When we got married, our all the money that we got from like friends and family for our wedding, we put it towards backpacking equipment.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, and we backpacked around Arizona and stuff, so that's kind of how I got started in like living in the backcountry and backpack hunting and
And
stuff. So.
how long ago was that?
Oh, I've been backpack hunting. I think that was about probably 6 years ago, something like
Gotcha.
that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely not, I'm not an expert. I have not been backpack hunting for 30 years or anything like that.
Well, I
So,
mean, I think that's irrelevant in terms of, I mean, you are an expert, obviously, because you're very successful at it and you wrote a book about it. And so
well,
I would consider that an expert level backpack hunter. And it's interesting because like your progression is almost the opposite of what mine was. I was backpack hunting when I was in high school. Heck, I actually middle school. And I joined the service, and then ever since I got out of the service, I've only been backcountry hunting a couple of times just because of the nature of the terrain that I hunt. It's less conducive to the biggest thing is we deal with a lot of wolves up in North Idaho. And so if you backpack into a spot and the wolves will push the elk out, you're kind of pigeonholed in there and stuck, you know.
Yep.
And so we do a base camp now, but I want to do it again and get back into it somewhere else, like go out of state and do it. Go out of I'm building points in Montana and Wyoming. Where all have you hunted?
I've done so obviously Arizona. I've hunted Utah, Colorado, Idaho. I think that's it in the West.
And so when I think a lot of people, when they think backpack or backcountry hunting, Arizona's not a state that you think of, I think, right off the bat. And
No.
Probably a lot of that is due to the water issue.
Yes, it is.
You think that's why?
Yeah, it's one of the issues for sure. I had a good friend of mine come down from Idaho to hunt some Coues deer with me, and I said, yeah, we can backpack and stuff like that. And that dude's number one concern, it seemed like, was water, because he's like, we're in the desert, blah blah blah. I'm like, well, it's around, it pools up in the bottom of canyons and stuff like that. So we just have to put some boot leather to it and try to find it, or we can just haul it in, which is something that we do a lot here in Arizona. I'll like, just for convenience, I'll haul in a couple gallons of water a week ahead of time, stash it, and then when I get there, it's there for me waiting in camp.
Has anybody ever gotten to your water source that you stashed?
Nope.
Okay. Because I've heard, I don't know who was telling me. I got a couple other buddies I have up here in the Northwest. They're big time backcountry hunters. In fact, they wrote a book too, Team Bad Decision. And these goofy buggers.
Oh yeah. I know that book.
I don't know if it was them or not, but somebody was saying they stashed some water and they got back in there and somebody had taken it.
Oh wow, yeah, and knock on wood, haven't had anybody take it. I'd be more worried. I'm always more worried about a bear finding it, and ripping it up.
Huh. Elk hunting. Talk to us about that and how you came into elk hunting, because it sounds like your childhood was a lot like mine, where it was mainly just deer.
Yeah.
And then you got into bear, and I'm assuming elk.
Yeah, elk's one of those things. I'm not an elk nut. I'm really not. Like I enjoy elk hunting, but I think if I lived somewhere where I could elk hunt every year like you guys do, I might be a little bit more into it. But for us, elk hunting, it's just one of those things where you put your app in and pray every year that you draw a tag. It's one of the downsides of living in a trophy state.
I wanted to ask you about that. Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead. Finish.
No, it's all right. Elk hunting is kind of few and far between. So I've been, after putting in for so many years, that's the thing that drove me out of state to try other states, was elk. So I started, I went to Colorado. That was my first early archery elk hunt I ever had. And went over there, had a good time, and And I was like, man, I want to learn more about this. And but then I then I found high country mule deer, and that kind of ruined that.
That is that one's tough to compete with, man. There is something about that high country mule deer hunting that that is just magical. But
yeah, I find you're either a mule deer guy or an elk guy. That's like, because you have to choose, right?
There is some truth to that, and so I'm like an oddball, man. I love both of them. I love both of them.
Good for you.
But I've said this a million times on the show. I'm really into these public land, high mountain whitetails recently. And
oh, nice,
man, they are a freaking ball to hunt, and so it's like now I'm torn. You know, am I gonna go after mule deer or whitetail? So,
that's a good problem to have, Jim.
It is a good problem. I'm not complaining. When you're talking about as a resident in Arizona, like how often can you guys get an elk tag? Is it once every 5 years, or I've always wondered about that because you guys have some great elk hunting.
Yeah, no, it is. So one of the things about early archery elk hunting here is once you do it here, I mean, I love other places I've hunted elk and stuff, but once you elk hunt here in September, you're kind of ruined.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's just like nothing else. So for us, for an early archery elk tag for a mid-tier unit, you're probably looking at, now this is in terms of like, hey, I have enough points, I'm going hunting, like that. You can draw any year. We have randoms, a random draw, so you can draw with 0 points. But in order to like be like, give me that tag, you need about 6-7 points in order to do that.
Gotcha.
So we do have the thing I've done the past couple years. This is what kind of drove me to do this, was we do have late archery elk hunts, and which are in mid-November. So you can be hunting, these mid-November bulls in units that take, seriously, like no joke, like 15-20 years to draw for a September tag. And those only take us probably to get like 100% draw 3 points for us down here.
That's not too bad then.
No, I mean, I drew it this past year and the year before. So. Oh,
nice. Okay, so there is opportunity. It's not.
Yes.
It's not crazy.
Yes. No, it's opportunity, but like for the guy looking for that September hunt. You're gonna have to wait.
Yeah, for sure. Or go elsewhere, like you were talking about.
Yep.
Mule deer, man. There's some pretty good mule deer hunting down there in Arizona, I know.
Oh yeah.
Where else do you go?
For mule deer?
Yeah.
Like other states? Colorado had some great mule deer hunting up in Colorado. Love hunting up there above the trees.
Oh yeah.
And then Utah is the other place that I really like to go. I'm actually planning to hunt there again next year in Utah. A lot of deer up there, just beautiful country. It reminds me a lot of Arizona, kind of, because at least where I'm hunting, there's not water everywhere.
Yeah.
So
yep, it's pretty dry. Pretty dry.
It is kind of arid, but that high country up there is just that just infects you, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's one thing I miss about, because like I told you, I grew up in Utah, and the way you would get tags back in the day is a lot different than you get tags now. But I do miss that high country. And I did go back and do it a few times back in like 2010, through 2013. I was getting these tags down there, and man, it is tough to compete with some of that. And I never want to promote it too much, because I don't want anybody in Utah coming after me because I'm, talking about how good it is. But it is kind of a hidden gem that not a lot of people talk about. And it's the same for elk for Utah.
I agree. I haven't elk hunted in Utah, but like the mule deer thing, man, there's a bunch of deer up there. And I really haven't had too many issues running into other people. Like I've run into some other hunters here and there, but like it's not anything that like will push you off the mountain.
Well, Utah is one of those states where like you can be you could be in crowded areas if you choose to be, or you can get away. And a lot of people, one of the complaints I hear about Utah is, it's overly crowded. There's too many hunters. There's, this and that. And I remember there was some areas where it was like, it sounded like, Vietnam or something.
Sure.
But there's areas that you can really get away from. My family has a ranch in central Utah, and it's irritating because my dad, he'll stand out there with his cell phone and like take a picture of this huge mule deer walking through, and he's like, oh yeah, this guy comes through every time. Dude, if I saw a mule deer like that up here during deer season, I'd faint. And they're like just everywhere down there, and you can get away. But anyway, sorry, Utah peeps. I don't mean to. I'm not promoting hunting in Utah.
There's no deer in Utah.
They all died. So no, that's fantastic, man. And I feel like I want you to keep me posted on your upcoming hunt to Utah. I want to talk about that more, but off air, obviously. So, what got into your mind? Actually, let's not go there yet. Back us up and talk to us a little bit about your writing, how that happened, how you've developed as a writer.
Oh yeah. So, not a plan. Didn't plan on it. I mentioned when I got into my mid-20s, I really, really dove into the whole hunting thing full bore. And when I did that, I kept on having to go. It's kind of funny. I kept on having to go and meet friends for coffee and stuff like that, because they kept wanting to hear about my hunts.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, you know what? I wonder if I just started a blog, and wrote all this stuff down, and with any luck, I wouldn't have to go on as many trips to go meet people to talk about my hunts.
Coffee shops.
But also maybe I could, with the transparency that I'm providing, maybe I could provide a little bit of inspiration to newer hunters, because in my opinion, it's gotten a lot better, but hunting media is definitely, at least when I was growing up, it is very misleading.
Oh, totally.
You watch a 25 minute show, and $3 die, and, you kind of get in your head, it's like, oh, I can do that, which is great. It inspired you to get in the field. But then when you get in the field, you have this reality check, and it's like, man, I was out for 5 days. I didn't even see a buck.
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing wrong? Right. So I felt like if I was that transparent with people to let them know, hey, oh, you had a hard hunt. Yeah, me too, man. That's how it is. And to kind of resonate with people more. So I started a blog called Dialed In Hunter because of that. It was basically, it documented my hunts, failures, successes, and everything in between, my philosophies that I've kind of developed through the years. And as I did that, like I said, it wasn't a plan, but I got an email here and there, or a text message here and there from editors saying, hey, would you write a story for this magazine? Would you write this for this website? Blah, blah, blah. And that I was like, yeah, heck, absolutely. So, and it just snowballed. And now as I sit here, I got to pinch myself, knock on wood. I am a full-time freelance writer in the hunting industry.
Yeah.
And it's not I didn't try to be, it just kind of happened. So, that's how I'm sitting here right now.
So it's not something you set out to do, and it kind of, and you're like, that's actually how I started even getting to this podcast is writing blogs.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of just went in that direction too. But curiously, was it what you thought it would be, being just a total freelance writer?
I mean, it's a job, it's not it's not all peaches and rainbows, but I feel incredibly blessed. You know what I mean? Like I said, I got to pinch myself wondering when someone's going to wake me up.
Yeah, no, totally.
It's very, very cool to pour my energy into a passion and be able to make a living doing so.
Well, here we are, and it's already almost Christmas time, and you might be buying for that hunter in your life. or you're buying for yourself. Let's start with the westernhuntsman.com. If you go there and check out the gear tab, we've got all the Tacticam equipment. So if you know or you are interested in filming your hunt, jump on the westernhuntsman.com/gear and check out the Tacticam products, from the cameras to the reveal cell cams to everything else and all the attachments. It's all there. You can also check out the merchandise tab and get you a cool t-shirt or a coffee mug or something like that. And when you do make a purchase on the westernhuntsman.com, a portion of that proceed goes towards the fight against anti-hunters. Moving on, I want to talk to you about Scree gear. Scree is extreme mountain gear built for the wild. It's a great company with great gear that's not going to break the bank. Some of my favorite Scree items are the Hardscrabble pants. The Hardscrabble vest is super versatile. Get your complete layering system to the Kodiak pants, and I love the Bridger glassing mitt, so keep your hands warm when you're out there glassing the mountain, doing your thing. So check it out at screegear.com, and don't forget to use the promo code The Western Huntsman for 15% off and free shipping. Man, that's a great deal. Check it out, screegear.com. Let's talk about Phelps Game Calls, the oldest sponsor on the Western Huntsman podcast. Phelps Game Calls has a full lineup of elk calls, predator calls, deer calls, duck calls, anything you need call-wise. Check it out at phelpsgamecalls.com. Phelps is a true American story built from the blood and sweat and tears of Jason Phelps himself, from his garage to what it is now, one of the premier call companies out there on the market. I love these guys. It's a great company, great products, all backed by great warranties. Check it out at phelpsgamecalls.com, and don't forget to use promo code Huntsman10 for 10% off. Last but not least, check out Hoffman Boots. Hoffman Boots are my go-to boot. They have been for many, many years. I love this company. They are built right here in North Idaho. And if you are in the market for a new set of mountain boots, hunting boots, you need to check them out. I love my Explorers. You can get the Explorers in the 8-inch, the 6-inch. You can get the Summits. That's another great boot. Personally, I haven't tried them, but I can attest that if they're anything as good as the Explorers, you will not be disappointed. So go to hoffmanboots.com and check it out. Use promo code, all caps lock, by the way, Huntsman10. Huntsman10 for 10% off on your next Hoffman Boots purchase. Guys, that's it for sponsors. I sure appreciate you guys tuning into the show. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram and leave us a review if you wouldn't mind. It goes a long way to help the show. Let's get back into it. Here we go. So you get doing that, and it's like you wake up one day and you're like, hey, I'm going to write a book. Is that kind of how it went down?
Well, yeah. So I originally, we were talking before this. So as I started backpack hunting, like obviously, like when I had this blog going, and I was, writing about this stuff on my blog, like me kind of getting into this and everything, and this backpack hunting thing. And I was like, man, I'm writing a whole bunch of stuff on backpack hunting. I wonder, and I was getting a lot of questions from people on social media and stuff like that on various things, a lot of gear questions, a lot of, where do I camp? How do I do this? Blah, blah, blah. I was like, man, I wonder if I just like made like a one-stop shop for all of this, something where you've never backpack hunted before in your life. It's this thing that you could pick up, and after you're done reading it, you can go do your first backpack hunt, and so that was the goal. I was like, okay, I'm going to make a resource for this. And originally it was going to be an online course. But the more that I went down that route, I was like, you know what, this feels a lot more like a book,
Mm-hmm.
So started diving into that, figured that out, how to do that. And self-published it through Amazon, and now it's available. You can go get it, and it's something I'm very proud of and have had a lot of great feedback on. It's just very rewarding.
Yeah, I want to talk about the book itself for a minute, because like I mentioned in the intro, I haven't actually dived in and read this book yet. Because I wasn't super smart, and I ordered it right at the holidays, so Amazon was like way behind. In fact, I almost lost my life because I waited to order this thing that was for one of the kids for Christmas, and it got delayed, and it showed up like freaking 8 o'clock Christmas Eve, just in time, to get as the kids were going to bed. Anyway,
Yeah.
it was like 2 weeks behind. So I just got the book, but I want people to kind of understand what they're going to get out of this. And I think that's important because there's books out there. I mean, there's lots of books like this out there in one sense, but in another sense, what really sets this one apart from what I can tell is you actually get into the gear. You get into food for the backcountry, physical aspects of backpack hunting. I'm reading the chapters here. The mental side of backpack hunting, adult onset hunter. I'm excited about that one. That one's always curious to me. Safety in the backcountry. Where do I hunt? Solo versus hunting with a partner. Packing out game. There's a lot of information in here. There's like a chapter on the gear. You talk about different backpacks, how to size them. And you talk about like the water filtration. We were talking about water filtration, different filters for the backcountry clothing, all that kind of stuff. What do you think are some main things like people are going to get out of this book if they're, let's say it's somebody that's like, okay, I've been hunting, I've been base camping for such and such time. I really want to try a backpack hunt. And actually, before I ask that question, let's go to this question. What do you think hunters do that is like the biggest mistake when it comes to getting into backpack country or backcountry hunting? I can't even spit it out.
I think there's two things that they do. The most common two things that I see is, one, right on the surface, is they bring way too much stuff with them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you bring the kitchen sink. On my first backpack hunt, I remember hiking in and being like literally the first thing I thought was, how can I get this backpack lighter?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the second thing that people do, and I really think this spans into all things hunting with gear, is they focus way too much on gear.
Yeah, I would agree with that totally.
It is not. If people could get one thing from the book, the most valuable thing to me would be to pull the trigger and go.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, and that's kind of. I hope that throughout the book instills confidence in somebody to do so. Like backpack hunting and hunting in general, it to me is an art. And whoever, that's one of the beautiful things about it is that what is the best thing for me might not work for you, but that's okay. You have a blank canvas and you are the one holding the pencil, and you can paint it, or, you can draw whatever you want and to be your picture. My goal was to just kind of give you a blueprint of how you can do that with the book. So,
and coming from somebody who's just kind of skimmed through it so far, I think you do that pretty well here, because one of the things I think happens, and this can be true when we're talking about any kind of hunting, right? I mean, whether you're if you're staying in a hotel and day hunting or base camping somewhere or whatever, but it's particularly true when it comes to backpack hunting, and it is a lot of hunters get this paralysis by analysis, and they feel like the barrier to entry is so high or so expensive that it's impossible for them, or they live back east and they want to come and do a backpack hunt out west, and I feel like they build it up a lot of times in their mind that it is more difficult, more expensive, more challenging than it really is. And so that's, I think, what this book can offer, is it sheds some light on some topics for people that will help knock down that barrier to entry and understand that it's really not that. It's doable, I guess, is a way.
It is doable, and like, you don't have, does good gear help? Absolutely. It makes life easier. But you know what, man, before I had rain gear, I was bringing a trash bag with me.
Yeah.
Like there's ways to get around stuff. Like my first tent that I ever brought, that I was backpack hunting with, was 7 pounds.
Oh man.
And I would just
that
strap
about
that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I'll just strap it to the outside of the backpack. The point is if you want to do it, you'll do it. You'll find a way to do it. You don't have a a filter. You can't, you don't have the, like, maybe you don't have the means to go get that. Just bring water with you.
Mm-hmm.
Make it happen. You can do it, and then, like, when I started, because obviously, like, all of this stuff is expensive. It adds up. Even if you try to go a budget route, we would get like 1, 2 things here, 1, 2 things here, and then eventually, and then we'd skimp on in other areas where, you know, like a sleeping bag, for instance. Like, you don't need a 1 pound sleeping bag.
Yeah.
You just need something to keep you warm, right? So skimp there, get the 3 or 4 pound sleeping bag. Okay, but maybe you don't skimp on your water filter or something, right? Like, you just have to juggle a little bit, and just find what works best for you. But the main thing is do what's going to get you in the field. Don't, if it comes down to you, oh, I don't have the money to buy this tent. I can either save a lot of money and buy this, like, 7 pound tent over here and go backpack hunting, or I cannot buy a tent because I want to wait to get the one that I really want, but that means I'm not going to go on the hunt.
Yeah.
Buy the cheap one. Okay, because the experience that you're going to get from that is far more valuable than that expensive tent that you want.
That's such an important point. I mean, that's what I think a lot of people miss. The experience is what you need if you're just getting into it. It's funny you talk about some of this. When I was backpack hunting, and we're talking in the 90s, I was hauling in. I'd go for like 4 or 5 days, and I'd haul in, a couple of cans of SpaghettiOs and some top ramen and a mess kit. Like, we didn't have cool things like Peak Refuel and Mountain House.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? We didn't have that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So we did it that way. And one time, and it's funny, though, the experience you get, I'll give you a great example, talking about the dang SpaghettiOs. The experience you get, I'm young, I'm a teenager, I go back, and I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to light a little fire and heat up this can of SpaghettiOs, and then I'll open it. Well, I still to this day, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I heat this can of SpaghettiOs up in the fire, not thinking about the pressure that builds up because I didn't open it. And it explodes all over my camp, and I'm covered in SpaghettiOs. It's stuff like that. You think I've ever done that again? Nope. I learned that lesson, right? And so it's just it's interesting. I can't stress what you said there enough to new hunters, like people that are getting into it. Like, the barrier of entry is not, and you said it, like, there's a lot of marketing around hunting, and we've been talking about that on this show a lot. There's a lot of marketing. There's a lot of social media that like to, let's take Instagram for example. It's great to have this cool gear and take a picture, up on a mountain because you've got all the cool gear, the latest and greatest, all the technology, all this kind of stuff. And that's going to make a great Instagram post, right? I call it Instagram gold.
Yeah.
But that's not what's killing elk. That's not what's killing deer and bear. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, this is funny you bring this up because I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. I feel like, without offending anyone, I feel like people get way too analytical about arrows.
Oh, don't even start with me on that one, man. I don't even know what kind of arrows I shoot. I just know how to hit stuff with them.
So, like, this can be said with it all gear, right? You don't, the thing that I mentioned about the tent, like, a $400 bow is going to kill a deer just as well as a $1,500 bow.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it's the dude that is holding the bow that is the variable.
Yep.
So the arrow thing, goodness, man, like, people are getting real nerdy about arrows and be like, oh man, I need 21% FOC and just, I got to shoot a 600 grain arrow, and just all this stuff that is irrelevant in my opinion.
Have you seen those threads on social media where people, it'll be like this 48-hour conversation about arrow setup.
It's like there is a point. Look, I'm a fan of good arrows, right? Like you need what's the best arrow? Is the one that flies the best for you. That's the best arrow.
Yeah.
It like FOC, weight, 3 vanes versus 4 vanes, insert outs, all of it is irrelevant. It's the thing that flies the best. Okay.
Yeah.
And there is a point, I believe, where you're just splitting hairs.
It's a situation, like Josh, how I always look at it is, because you have people like me, and what I do is I have a buddy named Eric Warren who has Westwood Archery, and I just take all my shit over there, and I tell him I want an arrow that can kill a bull, and he sets it all up. I go shoot it and get it dialed in, and my job is to make sure I'm proficient at shooting this. He does a really good job for me. I don't have to geek out with it. However, that what happens is you've got two sides of it. You've got people like me and maybe like you who don't want to geek out on the actual technical arrow or archery side of things. And then you have people that they love hunting, but they're also archery enthusiasts, right? And so they're way into the archery stuff. And you have this on the gun hunter side too, which I've kind of gotten that bug over the years. Kind of comes and goes where, I kind of want to geek out on the ballistics or whatever. But I never get that crazy with it. I just know how to shoot these weapons because to me, my goal is to hunt and notch a tag. I'm not like a shooting enthusiast. I'm not like an archery enthusiast, right?
Yeah, and it like, don't get me wrong, before you start getting emails of angry people, like
we might.
I think there's value in knowing how things work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like I truly do. I think there's value in like knowing your arrow setup and why it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But the arrow setup aside, the thing that matters is the goal is to put that arrow in a critter. And the thing that it frustrates me just a little bit is when I'm talking to a guy that has never killed something with a bow, and he's real stressed out about what arrow setup he's gonna go with.
Yeah, I know, man. I know that guy.
And I'm like, listen, I love that you're passionate about this. And this might not be what you want to hear, but instead of focusing so much energy on what percent FOC you have, why don't you spend some time out in the field and really like learn about animals and like learn about, if you're hunting mule deer, like learn about mule deer biology, like what foods are they eating, and if it's bears, learn about their denning habitat versus their summer habitat. Just what I mean, like that.
Totally.
That's the stuff that fills tags. It's not, the animal doesn't care if your arrow is 20% FOC or 12% FOC.
Yep, exactly.
It doesn't matter. With that being said, it's cool to geek out on stuff, I guess, right? But like what I'm getting at, I guess, is like in certain hands, it is valuable, but I feel like in most hands, it doesn't really matter.
It could create a false barrier to entry. And that's I think what the problem is. I don't care if somebody wants to geek out with arrows and geek out with their bow. I've got a good buddy and he's like that with trad bows. I mean, he knows every little thing, how many dang hairs are in the feather kind of thing.
Sure.
And I know a lot of fly fishermen that do the same thing, where it's this paralysis by analysis. They're like, well, that elk hair caddis fly doesn't have enough gray in the bitch. Give me the fly rod and let me show you how to catch a fish with it. You don't need to like quit worrying about it. And it's just like that. And that's I think the biggest stressor that I'm trying to make and what you're trying to get at is don't allow the technical details like that bog you down in your hunting. Because I've used like 10-year-old old PSE Stinger, the Stinger 3 for like 10 years, and I killed an elk with it, I don't know, 3 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
When was that bull? Anyway, really nice bull. And I don't even remember what the arrows were. I don't remember. All I did was take that bow in and got it tuned every year and shot it a bunch. And so
Yep.
now I finally did upgrade. I did finally, to my wife's demise, I did upgrade my bow, and I'm pretty happy with it. So it's cool. But yeah, that's a great point you make, man. Getting bogged down with the gear, that kind of stuff. Can we talk about water filtration for a minute?
Sure. Yeah.
Because I don't want to give away too many details in your book, though. But can you kind of walk us through like what you recommend? I feel like somebody in Arizona is going to have a little bit more of a handle and expertise level. Talk to us about what kind of filter you recommend, you personally use, and walk us through that.
So the filters out there that get a lot of press out there is a lot of the gravity fed filters and squeeze filters. The Sawyer squeeze is a good one. Platypus gravity. These are all great filters. However, when you have a limited amount of water, it is cumbersome to try to use these because you need to fill up a bag, and in order to do that, you need a kind of an adequate water source in order to do that.
Like a flowing stream kind of thing?
Yeah, or like like a creek, like a stream, like maybe flowing down some rocks that creates like a little, like you can create like a little spout with that. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yep.
We don't have that really. I mean, we don't get me wrong. We have creeks and rivers in Arizona, but they're not everywhere like they are in other places I've been. So because of that, my mindset has always been I carry a pump, because here in Arizona, sometimes I've filtered water out of silver dollar size holes before, where water just collects from a spring that's underground or something just like that.
Yep.
Yeah. So in a situation like that, I would have been SOL if I had something like a squeeze filter. I wouldn't have been able to get water. So that's what I carry. I'll not be honest, like when I am going somewhere where I know that there's maybe there's a lake, a high country lake, or there's water everywhere, I have in the past ditched the pump and brought with me, one of the gravity filters, because it's very convenient to have in camp. You fill up 4 or 5 liters of water, have it hanging in a tree. Man, you got running water right there in camp. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But the whole Sterapen thing, I haven't really messed around with that a whole lot because I feel really for the same reasons. I don't.
You're talking.
There's not
like a life straw kind of thing.
No, not a life straw, but like a UV. Sterapen.
Yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Same thing with that. You need like an adequate water source to fill up a Nalgene bottle, so you can treat the water in there. I've had buddies that have used those with flying colors. They love them, but for me, like mentally, I just like knowing that I can get water in most places rather than some places.
Gotcha.
So I usually lean on the side of a pump.
What's like the nastiest water source you've ever gotten water out of?
Honestly, I have not too nasty, man. I find some of the water sources that are down in the bottoms of canyons can be nasty. With like bugs swimming around in them and stuff.
It looks like chocolate milk.
yeah, and that'll clog your filter up in a hurry. But other than that, I know some guys that'll filter out of our stock tanks and stuff out here. That is not something I've ever had to do. I try to find a more natural water source rather than that.
That sounds crazy. That's like just asking for trouble. I hope they brought a lot of toilet paper.
Oh, I mean, they're fine. They do fine, but I mean, a lot of times, that stuff. It's like filtering out of an elk wallow. It's probably gonna taste like elk piss.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So. We've got, I don't know, some people might get after me for this, but in North Idaho, we've got these natural springs that'll just kind of pop up out of the ground. You got to know how to find them because it's not a ton of water. But I mean, I could fill up I carry this little this cup in my pack. Again, you got to remember I'm generally base camp down on the bottom, and so I'm not packing in for multiple days here. And so I'll carry this cup thing that I make coffee with, and I'll just fill it up with these springs I find, and I'll drink the water right there without filtering it, and but this water's coming from hundreds of feet underground, and popping up right there. I've never had a problem, but I've been told that that's a bad idea. I don't know.
I think you're probably fine.
Yeah,
especially if it's coming, you know what I mean? Like, especially if it's like it's coming from inside the earth. If it was flowing, like one year we were camped next to these guys that had horses across the basin from us, and they were kind of camped right next to the creek. They're in Idaho, actually. And the creek, like where we were getting water, it was downstream from where those horses were.
Oh no.
And all of our filters froze on that trip. And once that happens, if you're using like what are those called? Like the filter is actually like a membrane.
Yeah.
If you're using one of those and it freezes, and then that compromises the filter, because basically it'll crack. Those little fibers in there will crack, and it'll let the bad stuff. So what we had to do, we were rolling the dice. We're like, man, should we just drink right from the stream? We're like, you know what, those horses are right there. So we sat there, we boiled water for all of us.
Oh yeah, man.
We had our timers out, waiting 90 seconds, for the water to boil for 90 seconds. And then that's how we finished our trip out. But yeah.
Well, you do what you got to do, man. But it was doable, right? I mean, you went through it, and see, we were talking about people that geek out on the gear and the archery equipment and the FOCs and all that kind of stuff. See, I geek out on stuff like your book. I love tangible hunting information and content like this, and I think that's where, like, folks listening, instead of worrying sometimes about some of the gear that we're, and the technology that goes into hunting. It's great to have if you've got the money and you want to have it. I can't say I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a lot of really great gear. I do. I love it, whatever. But if you're just getting into hunting, my advice is always pick up books like this, Becoming a Backpack Hunter. You're gonna read through that and gain information that is priceless when you actually get a tag. So books like this, other types of hunting content for the information, and getting those tags and getting out in the field, that's really gonna outweigh some $1,000 pack that you might buy that you might realize you don't need. I mean, I did it with a Army Navy surplus pack I bought from like the Vietnam era.
I used to. No, I hear you, dude. I used to. I would drag critters before I had a pack that could carry animals. Like that's. I remember I ruined a mountain lion hide because of that. I killed this lion, and I quickly realized my backpack was not adequate for hauling meat. So, I drug that thing 3 miles. And. That's what I had to do. That's all. Like, well, this is what I got to do. So yeah.
Let's say we've got somebody listening where worrying about the cost of gear is less of an issue, or they do have a budget, and they're wanting to go on a backpack hunt. What is the one piece of gear that you would recommend not to skimp on? Where other items you can, maybe get away with some cheaper stuff like that, 7-pound tent.
Yeah, I think, man, that's a toughie. But I gotta say the backpack probably.
Yeah.
Just having a backpack with a good suspension system on it, that is going to carry not only, your camp well, but like when you get something down, it has the ability to really distribute weight well. So you can get these heavy loads back to your vehicle. I've done the skimp on the backpack thing, and like I remember I had one backpack just with a day load in it I would cinch that waist belt down, and my hip flexors would fire up right away, like right when I left the truck.
Oh,
I was like,
jeez.
man, I got hunting ahead of me. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
so on that note, I will say you can spend as much money like that as you want, but even more important is learn how to properly put the backpack on.
What do you mean by that?
Because so a backpack is a chain of things that all works together. Okay, it's not a let me throw it over the shoulder, buckle all the buckles, and tighten everything as tight as they can get. It all works together. Okay, so your waist belt, like in general, like the goal of a backpack with a heavy load is you want 75 to 80% of the weight on your hips.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the rest of it on your shoulders. All right. So the proper way to put on a backpack, and I see this all the time, and some people that are pretty high up in the industry are wearing their backpacks like not. I'm not gonna say it's not right, but it's kind of throws people off. It should be.
Man, you're probably. I might be one of those, man. I'm interested in this. Keep going.
Yeah. So I'll just run through like how I put a pack on. Like, so what you want to do is you want to loosen everything up first. Loosen up the shoulder straps, loosen the load lifters, loosen the waist belt, loosen the sternum strap. Throw the backpack on. You want to get that waist belt, buckle that first. That's number one. Okay. You want to get that to the point where, in general, a good starting point is to put your hip bone in the center of that waist belt. Okay, the padding that goes around your waist.
Uh-huh.
Some guys like it a little higher. Some guys like it a little lower. That's like more of a personal preference thing. But like this is a great starting point. Put it there. Cinch that down tight. Okay. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna buckle your sternum strap. All right, and kind of get that sternum strap there is really just there to create space between the shoulder straps.
Okay.
Okay, and
Can I
to keep
back you
it
up?
there.
Can I
Yeah,
back
yeah,
you
yeah.
up to the waist strap? So
Yeah, yeah.
once your pack, you put the pack on and you don't tighten the shoulder straps yet. You're
Nope.
you're buckling up the waist strap. How tight does a person want that?
I get it to the point where it's nice and snug. Like, I mean, a good way to think of it is like get it to the point where it doesn't feel like it's gonna slip on you.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
like not so tight that you can't breathe. Okay, but like tight, nice and tight where it's not gonna slip on you. And you'll get the hang of that as you go. Because like, you put this whole backpack on and you start walking. If it starts slipping on you, you need it to be tighter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's just more of a trial and error thing. Get that tight. Do your sternum strap, clip that thing, and then pull on your shoulder straps just until you can feel the strap on your shoulder, not tight. Okay,
And then you
just
go to the sternum strap after that.
well, I do the sternum strap before that.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Because,
Okay.
because you want the because if you tighten those shoulder straps too much, they're gonna separate. Okay, does that make sense?
Yep.
Because
Yep.
the sternum strap there is there to keep those shoulder straps in place. And that's another like personal preference thing. Like, where do you like your shoulder straps to sit on your shoulder? If you like them a little closer, that's fine. Like them a little further away, that's fine. But set the sternum strap to where you like those shoulder straps to sit on you. And then shoulder straps and cinch those down. And cinch is a harsh word to use, but like just get them to the point where you can just feel them. Not where it's hugging your shoulder real tight or anything like that. Remember, you want mostly the weight on your hips.
Okay.
Okay. And then go for your lows and just pull those a little bit again, just until you can feel them. Not yanking them until there's all of a sudden this big V between your shoulder and your shoulder strap.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And like if you look in a mirror, you want those low lifters kind of like on a 45-degree angle upwards.
Yeah.
If the load lifters are facing completely in back of you, you need to adjust your torso length.
Okay.
Because yeah. So
Man.
you want that frame a little higher, which causes the load lifter angle to go up. bag, and then just snug, just a little bit. Don't ream on it, but just snug. And then that right there, man, that is how you put on a backpack. I remember I had a guy, I was working at one of the Full Draw Film Tour events, and a guy came in, this older guy in his, and he had a backpack, and he came up and he's like, "Hey man," I was working at one of the booths there, a backpack booth, and the guy came up and he had that backpack. He's like, "Hey, I'm having problems with this. What am I doing wrong?" And I was like, "Put your pack on." And he put it on, and everything was as tight as he could make it. And it wasn't working. All that stuff, like I said, it all works together. It's a system.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Give me that." And so I loosened everything. I put it on. And then I was like, "Do it just like how I did it." And I walked him through how to do it. And he's like, "Oh my God, dude, this is night and day different."
Dude, you need to make a video on this or something, because like I've been doing it, and I've been doing this a long time. I always put the shoulder straps on, tighten those down, and then go to the waist strap and the sternum strap. So I've been doing it totally backwards, and that probably explains why I get my ass kicked when I'm hauling an elk off the mountain or something.
Hey, I mean, you're probably a pretty tough guy, man.
Apparently, no. I'm just a glutton for punishment. I know there's better ways to do it, and it's just not something. Of course, I'm not backpacking in right now, but still, sometimes I go on these day trips where I'm one of those dudes that'll pack too much. I'll pack a book, or whatever, and or like I said, if I'm hauling meat or something, and I've got a really nice pack, but there's times when I'll haul something off the mountain and I'm totally fine, and other times that I haul something off with the same pack and about the same weight, and I'm like tore up from the floor up from it. So that's probably why.
I mean, it's a little routine. You know what I mean? Like every time I take my pack off and put it on, I loosen things, and it's just kind of second nature now. But like when you do it like that, you are starting at zero every single time, rather than if you keep things tight. Like I have friends. I watched a dude one time, a friend of mine. We killed this giant bear, and he had to hide in his pack, and he went and he tightened everything before he put the backpack on.
Oh, how do you even get along with that one?
In particular, yeah, no, exactly. Like in particular, he tightened the load lifters up as tight as could be before he even shouldered the pack. It's like, those are functional. Those are there for a reason, And so by doing that, you're putting a chink in the chain, and you're throwing things off, So yeah.
So is that like information how you recommend putting a pack on? Is that in the book?
Yeah, I believe it is. I think I call it like the 7 steps to putting on a backpack, I think.
Okay, I'm gonna find that, and that's awesome, man. Well, I know I've kept you a while here. I appreciate the conversation, man. I feel like we could just kind of keep this going for a long time, because I'm way interested in what else you have to say here. We might have to do this again, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let me know. I'd be happy to come back on.
So tell everybody where they could find you and where they can find the book.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on all the social platforms. You just search Dialed In Hunter on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm on all those. My website is dialedinhunter.com. And if you want to check out the book, just go on Amazon and search Becoming a Backpack Hunter. And it'll pop up. Feel free to get yourself a copy. And I hope y'all like it. I also make some hunting films and stuff on my YouTube channel. So just search Dialed In Hunter.
All right, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link to the book and the Instagram and all that into the show notes here, so you can check it out. The book, again, from Dialed In Hunter, a.k.a. Josh Kirchner. Becoming a Backpack Hunter, a beginner's guide to hunting the backcountry. Super cool. For those of you out there listening that think you're too cool to read a book or you don't have time, challenge yourself. We got a new year upon us. Challenge yourself to change that, because it is the reading of these books is where that information, even if sometimes you feel like you're not retaining it. I feel like that all the time. You could like define my life by the guy who forgets things he's reading. And so, story of my life. But That's not the case. You'll be surprised with how much information actually stays with you, particularly when you're out in the field. And this information just pops into your head. So I'd challenge you guys a lot of, because I hear this all the time. Well, I don't have time to read a book, or I don't read books, I listen to them, or I don't, blah, 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 whatever the case is. I would challenge you to change that in the year 2022. You'd be surprised what it could do. The benefits of reading a book like this will do for you, not only as a hunter, just as an individual. You got anything to add to that, Josh?
No, I just... No, man. Just kind of reiterate what we said earlier is I think one of the most valuable things out there, the best teacher is experience. So if you've been kicking around, getting into backpack hunting or getting into bow hunting or whatever it is, go make it happen, man. Don't be bashful. Go chase your dreams, man.
Yeah, for sure. Get after it, folks. New year, new you, right?
Yeah.
You got any New Year's resolutions you want to share with anybody?
Be the best dad that I can be, best husband, and keep going on killer adventures.
Awesome, man. Well, again, I appreciate you coming on, dude. That was a fun conversation. We'll have to do this again in the future. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You made it all the way to the end. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. We sure appreciate your support. This is Jim Huntsman signing off and reminding you to check us out at Instagram at The Western Huntsman and on Facebook at The Western Huntsman. And you can also check out the website at thewesternhuntsman.com. Thanks again. We'll see you guys next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you on the mountain.